Good evening to one and all present here. Today we are going to discuss an important parts of speech, verb. Verbs are the words that describes an action, whether physical or mental. Verbs also describe a state of being like the verb be, become or exist. Salah ran across the field, kicked the ball and scored a goal. I am the state. King Louis XIV. Some verbs also act as helper verb to change the tense of another verb. Likewise, helper verbs can change the positive statement to a negative with words like not. Every sentence needs at least one verb. If there is no verb, there is an incomplete sentence or sentence fragment. Except for imperative sentences, a sentence also needs a subject, the thing doing the action. Subjects are important form of a verb because they change how it's conjugated. Types of verb, that is action verb. Most verbs describe a physical action or activity, something external that can be seen or heard. These verbs are normally known as dynamic verbs. But can also be called the action or event. Laugh, walk, swim, play. There are lots of action that takes place in our mind and feeling which are not external. Examples: consider, guess, change, grow. Auxiliary or helping verb. Auxiliary verbs or helping verbs are used in English to change another verb's tense, voice or mood. When auxiliary verbs are used, there is always a main verb that represents the main action. Main auxiliary verbs are have, be form, have form and do form. I have eaten sushi many times before. The piece of sushi was eaten by me. Did you eat my sushi? Modal auxiliary verbs. Some auxiliary verbs are added to another verb to show the necessity, possibility or capability. Like other auxiliary verbs, modal auxiliary verbs are not the main verb, but they do change its meaning slightly. Some common examples are may, could, shall, should, would, must, ought and might. I could swim across the English Channel, but should I do it? Phrasal verbs are the verbs that acts as individual verbs. Individual verbs often combining two or more words and changing their meaning. The verb get, for example, becomes many different phrasal verbs when combined with different prepositions. When the bus stops, the passenger get out of the sidewalk. When the bus stops, passenger get out on the sidewalk. After losing his job, he is getting on by savings. The important thing to be remembered about phrasal verb is that they act as a single verb, so you can still use them with other verbs and preposition. Aside from the different types, verbs also come in different categories: dynamic, static and auxiliary verbs. All make up the categories below: transitive, intransitive and tritransitive verb. Transitive verbs, a direct object is the person or a thing that action happens to, while an indirect object is the person or a thing that receives the direct object. Linda threw the ball to Degram. Linda is the verb. The subject is Linda and the verb is threw. The direct object is the ball because what was thrown. Linda did the action to the ball. So indirect object Degram because he received the direct object, the ball. The verb don't use either or direct or indirect object. It is called intransitive verb. Verbs that use direct object is called transitive verb. So verbs that use direct object but not an indirect object are transitive. The verbs that use both direct and indirect object are called dry transitive verb. For example, throw, make, buy, sell, read, give, lead. So, these are the few examples of intransitive verb.